Hello and welcome. In today's video, we're going to talk about guitar design. How to create a body that looks right and that has a flow and harmony in it and looks the way a guitar is sort of supposed to do. Keep in mind that I'm going to have some guitars that I show you that you might like and that you might disagree with me on in their design, but this is not some sort of personal attack or anything. I'm just going through these bodies and trying to make a video that is educational about what you're supposed to sort of look at when it comes to designing something yourself. You can take what I'm about to tell you with a grain of salt, and you can apply the things in designing a body and see if it helps you, and if it doesn't, and if you're not getting what you're desired out of it, you don't have to follow this. There are plenty of people who have made guitars and not follow this. Keep also in mind I'm talking about it through a design point, so if I show you a guitar that you think looks nice and you don't agree with me, it's not a personal attack of any sort. It's just a question of finding harmony and balance and nothing more. So we're going to start out with this Stratocaster right here. It's a very famous design and it's been around for a long while. And some of you might argue that the reason why it looks right and the reason why people like it is because it's been around for a while. And I would say that yes, there is definitely something to a guitar being around for so long that we've gotten used to the way it looks. But there is also a design to it. There are certain elements that puts this guitar together neatly and makes it look in a certain way. And so I want to just quickly highlight those parts for you so that you can use those when you think about your own guitar. So, for example, the Stratocaster has a lot of circles in it. There's a lot of circles that come back. For example, we have a circle right here. Hope you can see it, but there's a circle there. And there is one here. There is a circle here, which is used to carve away. And there's a circle right here as well. You have a circle here as well, both for that upper horn here, but also a smaller one here. The same thing goes here. You have a circle all the way here and one here. You have a circle here in the negative space and here. You have a circle right here. You have a circle right here. You have a tiny little circle right there. You have a circle here and a circle here, even though it's very small, so it becomes like an egg shape. But anyway, you have a circle here as well. The knobs are all circles, and the headstock has a circle right here. So you can see here there are more circles than the ones I'm showing you, but there are a lot of circles. You have matching lines. You can see how this line right here is matching up with this line right here. You can see how this line right here, this circle going into another circle, is matching up with this circle going into another circle right here. It's creating a flow and a sense of things going together. And all the circles are matching, either in size or in harmony. You got lines that connect right here, this half circle right here, and this half circle right here. They're a little bit avon-longed, but they match together and line up, just like the edge of the guitar right here works together. The knobs are circles, and they're also circles in a line with the end of the pickguard, so they flow very naturally together. Now, you can't freehand draw something of this perfection. This is something that you have to calculate out by measure. So you have to measure out a circle like this in size and replicate it here. You have to measure out this circle here and match it up with this circle here. This one would be a bigger circle than this one here, if we talk about the radius. But you can find a harmony in them. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, we'll take a look at some other ones and hopefully you will see how it starts to make sense. So here we have the Les Paul, and it's actually a lot of circles as well, maybe even easier to see because you have a circle right here. It's a smaller one radius wise than on the Strat, and you have a matching one here. The entire body down here is also a giant circle, and you have a circle here, and it would be completely symmetrical if it was if it didn't have a cutaway, but we have a cutaway here, and that's a circle too. If you make your own Les Paul, and you, for example, would cut in here a V shape instead of a circle, you would change the design a lot, and you would throw the balance of the guitar completely off. You have the same thing here. You have knobs that are circles, so they go together as well. And you have the control for the pickups, the selector switch up here, creating a balance across the guitar that gives it harmony. Now, the pickguard does have a tiny bit of circle here where it has the cutout and the upper part before the cutout, but it is actually a design that doesn't really go well together with the body, and I think that's the reason why some people prefer it, because they're used to it, and some people don't prefer it because it is a design that is a little bit off. This line here does not go particularly well together with the curve of the body, and this line here doesn't really match up to the curvature of the body. So you can see how that's an instant in guitar building where you have something that doesn't technically work, but it does work because we've seen it so much, but there is also an element of it going against the grain. You have some other lines, you know, the pickups are very square, the bridge are both sort of square, so the pickguard works with it better because of that. If you had something that was more rounded, or something a little bit more, for example, like a Stratocaster, you would probably need to change the pickguard to make it feel harmonious. Same thing here with the Telecaster. We have the shape of the body right here, and here we have two circles that are going together. They're bridged by a little bit of an even bigger circle. If you think about it, it's not completely flat right here. You can, for example, put a ruler up against it and you'll notice that right here it's not completely flat. You have the circle in here, and you have the circle in here. You have the circle up here and in here, and then this whole area here is also a circle. It's not a complete perfect circle because it's a little elongated, but then you have a little circle here. I feel like the Telecaster gets away with this because it has other elements. Like the pickguard isn't completely circular. It has this cutaway. It has this sort of egg circular shape right here, where it's a little bit elongated as well. This curvature right here goes against this curvature. They don't add up, but the bridge is very square. The control plate is also very square. It is rounded at the ends, so you see you have circles there as well. Again, the knobs are circular, which is something you will find on most guitars, but it's also something you can use against it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You have the same thing up at the headstock. You have a circular motion right here, and one here, and you have one captured in between in the negative, and then a really big one up just before the first fret in the nut. And you can see sort of how it creates harmony. You also have, in all of these, technically, single coil pickups are rounded at the end, so it's like two circles as well. And you can see sort of how, by having something, for example, here it's very obvious, the body is mirrored. The left side and the right side are the same, so it creates harmony because it's symmetrical. And then the upper horn cutaway creates a different sort of feel. But if you've seen, for example, Mike Bloomfield's guitar, you know that the cutaway is just a straight line, and that breaks the illusion or the theme or whatever you want to call it of the shape, and disrupt the harmony. And that's the reason why people think that it's a very sad thing what happened to the guitar. And if you've seen my video where I made my Mike Bloomfield guitar, you can really tell that by just keeping the theme, keeping the flow, keeping the design, using the elements that already exist in the guitar, I'm able to do a cutaway and make it look right. So what if we have a guitar that isn't round, something that is based on maybe something else than a old classic design of a guitar? So here we have a guitar that is not using circles as its theme for its design. It's actually using triangles, which I think you can see. You have a giant triangle in the pickguard right here. Right here, you can see that this big V here, and it goes over into the body right here as well. It continues along the edge of the body. You have a triangle right here as well. It matches up pretty well. You have a triangle here, which I hope you can see. You have a triangle here as well. And they go together through the body in a very neat design. And you have lines that fit together. You have this upper line here that you can find through the controls right here. It's not exactly perfect matchup, but it's close enough so that your eyes will find the pattern and see harmony in the design. The same thing here. This line here lines up with this line here. Not exactly perfect, but it's still enough. And the same thing goes with this. The controls is a continuation of the pickguard, or the pickguard is a continuation of the controls. There is a line going through. And this line here you also find up here on the headstock. For example, if you had a headstock that was flipped, you would feel that the harmony was lost on it. The same thing goes on the underside. You can see how this line here creates a triangle. This entire headstock is a triangle. It's a little bit soften up and roundness, which we will talk about in a second. But this line on the underside of the headstock lines up with this line as well. And these lines don't have to be exact, perfect, mathematical all the time. Sometimes it really helps if they are, so you can use math to draw out different radius circle and see if you can find different spaces for them to fit together. For example, if you have a certain radius circle up here, you can make sure you match that up down here, and the same thing if you have something here, you can match it up here. This guitar uses circle as well, to very little, because you can see right here it has it. It does have a circle up here and here. It has a little bit of a circle in the corners right here, and it does have a circle up in the headstock just under the name where it goes together. And it's using those because it's softening up the design. It makes the guitar look less sharp than it is, and it makes it look nicer. I also think it's a design for when you're cutting out the body, because if you're going to cut it out with a router, having really sharp edges you can't really get in with a router, so you have to have a round over to make it look more even and be easier to cut out. And even though this design is old, I don't think it's old enough for routers to not exist, even if CNC routers weren't really a thing. You can see how these lines go up. You can see how the pickups create a line here that matches up with the scratch plate, and it's just creating harmony. And the pickups goes into the neck and creates a harmony throughout the entire length of the neck, through the pickguards to the bridge. It's just a very interesting way of designing a guitar without using circles. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of guitars where things are not going perfectly well together. And again, if you like these guitars or if you think they're cool, that's a personal preference thing. I hope you can still follow along at what it is I'm saying, regardless of your own preference. But if you look at this guitar, for example, you can tell that this is not really a Stratocaster. It's a copy. And the reason why you can tell that is because it's smaller. You can see, for example, that this jack here is a lot bigger. It does seem to match up in a pretty nice way with the pickguard, but this roundness here doesn't match up with this one here. It's a little bit offset, which doesn't have to be wrong. You can definitely do guitars that way. For example, the Jazzmaster and the Jaguar are guitars that are offset and look perfectly fine. But for example, you can tell here that this cutaway and this cutaway are there's a big difference in design. First of all, they're different size, but this one goes out more here while this one comes back in a little bit, and that creates a weird disharmony, or whatever you want to call it. The same thing here. You have a flow here that doesn't match up with this flow here, and this line here doesn't match up with this line here. You can see how this one peaks away like that and this one continues on. And so if the lines were to continue, they wouldn't continue to line up. Just to sort of over explain this, here I have the two guitars on top of each other, and as I change the opacity and the next guitar shines through, I hope you can really tell, if you take a closer look and if you keep looking at it for a while, how the two designs don't really add up. There is some difference that really makes one of them look really odd in comparison in design. You can see how the body has a lot of lines that goes together really well, and the other one has a lot of lines that don't really go together particularly well. We have the same issue up here with the headstock. This one doesn't any longer really align. You have a cutaway here that creates more of a V shape, and up here you do have the circles, but it doesn't really flow together that well. You can see right here how this curvature here is more round than this right here, which is a little bit of a more pointed roundness. So yes, that's a guitar that is designed without those elements. They've seen a Stratocaster, they wanted to build a Stratocaster, and they've just changed a couple of things to get around it being a Stratocaster, but in just changing things without thinking about the entire harmony of the guitar and how it is supposed to actually look and what it is that it actually is, they've sort of lost the harmony and the symmetry and the flow of design, and instead ended up with something that doesn't really feel organic or natural. Here we have another guitar that is in a lot of ways very good in its design. It does the same thing as the Stratocaster. It has a lot of circles, and a lot of circles that repeats themselves and come up. It also has a very nice flow from this place right down here to this upper horn here, where it's offset, and by enlarging this and pulling this away in that direction and pulling this one in that direction, they create harmony. But they have a really strange elongated roundness here that doesn't feel like it's a real circle, and then they have a circle here that is very small with a odd sort of flatness to it, and that is breaking the flow in the guitar. So most of the guitar looks nice. If I were to, for example, delete this part here, which is, this doesn't look good either, obviously, because that's not anything. But if you looked at the rest of it, you could sort of imagine how the parts that I just deleted should look, and it wouldn't be this. Obviously, this guitar has been around for a while now, and people have seen it, and there are enough things that match up. Like, for example, you do have a flow right here of this continuous motion going in here, and you do have this line here which is working with this line here and creating a flow as well. And you do have the roundness in the headstock as well, where you can see sort of how there are circles that exist everywhere. But it has a theme of elongated circles, sort of an egg shape that it uses. You can see it everywhere, how this circle here, for example, would be rounder here, and then the radius would widen towards this little horn right here. Same thing here. It has a roundness here that gets elongated or widened towards this horn right here. And you could argue that that's what they're doing right here as well as this radius, but I feel like this is too flat, and the same thing here. This horn makes it disconnect, and I imagine that maybe they should have had a circular motion that was this entire area instead, and that would have brought a better shape and a better harmony to the entire guitar. But keep in mind, you can still enjoy this guitar and find it to be a nice, well-made and interesting guitar, so don't take this as anything else than a look at what might be the reason why someone looks at this guitar and find it odd. It could still be a guitar that you enjoy. So here we have a couple of guitars, and I just wanted to point at them a little bit to just show some oddities in them. Now, obviously, weird and quirky guitars that look strange can be a lot of fun, and it doesn't mean that they're bad, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them, and sometimes something that just looks off or looks weird can be fun. But as you most likely know, none of these guitars have really gone down in history as guitars of great importance to the music world. Now, there can be a lot of reasons why that is, and obviously the design isn't the only thing. But if we look at this design a little bit, we can, for example, find on this first one up in the corner here that there is no real reason for the pickups to be angled differently. It's obviously a design choice, but it doesn't make it a lot of sense. The bridge is very square in its place, and so is the bridge pickup, but then the neck pickup is slanted for some reason. The controls are not in line with anything, especially not the bridge, which is what they're closest to. They're not in line with the pickguard either, and the jack out is neither in line as well. You have circles within circles for the upper horn. You basically have a smaller radius circle just by the horn's pokey little part that points out, and then a larger radius circle for the actual horn. And I can tell immediately that those are not accurate to each other. If you look closely at them, you can probably tell that this horn right down here goes inward towards the body more than this one does. And it's a small design, but you have to think about those things. Also, this here creates a more of a V shape than what, for example, these does. They do create a sense of V-shapedness, especially down here. Not so much up here, but it's a little bit more of a V right down here. But up here we have very much a circle, and down here we also have very much a circle. So they don't really go together that well with each other. There just isn't that much of a harmony. Here we have a guitar that isn't that bad in a lot of ways. It keeps harmony in it, but we have this cutaway right here that is almost like a little square thing. This here is rounded towards the back on both sides, and this line here has a more up than this that is straight. This one goes out a little bit in its roundness, while this one has a more flat continuation of the movement. And it's smaller details, but they're a part of the design and they don't really go together. You also have these knobs. Now, they are, in this picture, pressed down, a couple of them, and some of them are up, and that is creating this feeling that there is a little bit of a curvature right here, but they're supposed to be dead straight. And so they're made to be straight with this line here. But it's still a question of design. You could have had less switches, you could have had 2 switches here and maybe 2 switches here, and you could have done something else. So it could have gone together differently if you had looked at it in the design phase. Here we have a lot of wild and weird things. You have this curvature right here that you don't really see coming back in here. You have an extra little pickguard here. You have this almost S shape going in here. You have a circle here that's real big. This horn doesn't really match up with this horn. This here has a sort of elongated circular motion, and this one has more of a V shape. Here we have a flattened out sort of circle, and then here we have a elongated big circle as well as here, and it just doesn't create any harmony. Here the pickups are very square, and the bridge is rounded off, so it just doesn't really create any harmony at all, basically. And I imagine this is a guitar that isn't super popular. I could be wrong, but never really seen it before. Same thing here. Now this has a sort of retro look to it, and I kind of like it in its own way, but you can clearly see how this pickguard here doesn't flow together, and it's almost like the point of it is that it doesn't flow together. I'm not going to talk so much about this one because I feel like I have said everything about this in the other ones. Same thing here. You know, you have a sort of Les Paul inspired guitar, but there are some quirks about pickups that look odd, and pickguards that don't really go together, horns that don't really match up. Here we have, for example, a cut out in the body, which is a fun little detail, but it doesn't really, if you look closely at it, doesn't really float together with the rest of the design. Up here you have a line that pretty much matches up with this, but then this underline here doesn't match up with either the pickguard on either side or the bottom of the guitar, so it creates a sort of weird wonkiness to it that maybe isn't perfect. But you can see how a lot of the other lines are pretty good. This line here and this line here works pretty well together. Not perfect. This line here and this line here sort of work together. There's a little bit difference there. This one are very much the same, and so that makes these other lines a little bit more a little bit less harmonious in their design. And here we have another guitar where the pickguard design, for example, don't really go together with the guitar, and this part here is especially wonky. You can see how this here doesn't really add up together with this, and it doesn't really flow together with the rest of the design of the body, where you have these really sharp lines that don't really flow together. This line here, for example, doesn't really add up with this line right here. And if you take a look at the other two, you can see the lines that aren't really adding up on those either, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. Okay, so let's now put what I've been talking about into practical use, because I realize that some of you have been listening to what I've been talking about and you feel maybe that this is all sort of weird mumbo jumbo and, you know, it's all well and good, but how do you use this? So I'm going to try to do this. Keep in mind that I'm just doing a concept thing right now. If I were to actually do this for real and designing a guitar I wanted to actually make for real, I would spend maybe a month on this. But I'm just making this one to sort of show you what the process would be. But I would, you know, do it again, think about it, compare different drawings, you know, different designs, and go back and forth and finalize it. Because this part is technically not that hard to do, but once you're actually cutting it out in wood, you're sort of set in your way. So you want to make your template, which I think you should do first, is make your template, and you should make your template perfect. And so drawing this up on paper and then scaling it up to an actual guitar size and then redrawing it and making sure it works and fits, and then cut out your template, your master template for making the shape. That's a long process, which we are obviously not going to do now. We're just going to freestyle, hand draw something as a first concept, just so you know. And also, obviously, the reason why is because once you start cutting into actual wood, you know, like a blank mahogany body or something, you're set in stone and you have to finish it. You can obviously change the guitar design later when you go to your next build, if you notice that something is a little bit off, or that something looked good on paper but didn't work in real life, and you have to adjust it. But you will want to try to minimize that as much as possible, because building prototypes is a luxury thing that we can't all afford. But anyway, so we have a paper here. I strongly suggest you use something like this, but you can go with a blank paper if you want to. But the first thing we need to do is take a ruler and just try to create a center line. So I'm going to just line this up and just take one of these lines here and just... You need a center line. In all guitar building, you need a center line. So there we have a center line. I hope you can see it. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit. There we have it. Now it's more in the middle of the screen. You need an eraser because we're going to make a lot of mistakes. And then, like I told you earlier in the video, you sort of have to have an idea of what sort of theme you're going to have. If you're going to go with a rounded theme, if you're going to go with a triangle theme, if you're going to go with squares or ovals or something. You can come up with your own shape as well if you want to, but I'm going to go with a triangle for this one because I feel like that's a quirky thing to do, and it will sort of show you what I mean. And there are measuring tools for angles and things like that you can use, so you can make sure you're using the same angles and things like that. But I'm going to use this. This is obviously a fret rocker, and as you can see, it has a couple of angles already in it, so I can make sure I'm always using the same angles. I think that will be good. So I'm gonna start off by going up 3 on this line here. Let's see here maybe, so that you can see. We'll make this the back of the guitar, and I'll make it 3 high and 3 low for now. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm gonna come in with this angle here. I'm gonna put that there somewhere. Is that looks right? And we'll just see if we can create something cool. I'll do the same on the opposite side. Just come in here. Something like that, and we'll have this squareness here for the back for now. And then maybe I can use this to create the horns. This angle here. And I'll go back to here. And I'll align it. And I'll draw that there. And then, you know, this is obviously where the neck is gonna go. It's gonna be something like that. And it's not going to be perfectly straight, but just to give some sort of concept of, you know. Something like that, maybe. That's a pretty good neck shape. Yeah. And then that will be the cut-in. So we'll have that line there, matching up with that line there, with this line there. It's a little boring at the moment, but maybe we can, maybe this can come in here, for example, and break up that boringness. And do we want the same thing here, maybe? Or maybe we want something a little bit more, you know, Something like that, maybe. I feel like it should go past a little bit more. You know? We'll see if we can erase this line here. Something like that, and we'll remove this line here for now, at least. And I feel like that's kind of interesting, but the problem is here we have two lines that is abruptly cut there, which could work with that line there being abruptly cut, so it could be sort of a nice thing going there. But I'm thinking maybe I want to redesign that line there and keep this one going. So maybe having this line come back, which is the same as this, so we can reuse it here, but just change the angle. Maybe that will be sort of cool. And obviously, this is a first drawing again, so if you feel like I'm not doing a good job, please keep in mind that this is just to prove a concept or an idea. Because now we have lines that maybe feel like they're random, but they're not. And it's creating a little bit of a harmony in it. There is something that is a little bit off that I have to think about. And I think it's that usually we feel like the guitar should be bigger on the back than the front. So I feel like maybe moving this line back, for example, to the neck, the end of the neck, so that the neck can line up with it, is a good idea. And maybe moving this line forward a little bit. That will shrink that horn down a little bit, but we'll keep the angles. So that it works together with the guitar. A little bit better. And then we have to do something here as well. I think that maybe this horn here has to come up a little bit, just to, and then go forward maybe a little bit as well. And then maybe this line can come in a little bit, and this line can come in a bit as well. And that leaves us with something that looks a little bit more even in shape. But I'm not loving this cutoff right here, because it's weird to have that cutoff and having everything else being pointed, because we have a point here, 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 here. So this should really be a point, but I'm pretty sure that it will, we'll have to do something more drastic than just connect these. Actually, that looks pretty nice. You know? I think that looks pretty nice. At least for like a very quick drawn guitar. All angles are being repeated somewhere. All angles are downsized or upscaled versions of each other. It goes well together with the guitar. And we could obviously soften the edges up, you know, sort of like on a Gibson Explorer or something, and even everything out a little bit to give it a little bit more, to make it work, basically, because this would be very hard to route out those very sharp edges. Maybe there is a guitar that looks something like this, I don't know. Yeah, and then maybe we could think about like the pick guard. We could have something like, maybe just to be creative, can we reuse this angle here, for example, and have those meet, you know, something like that. And maybe this could be actually, that's pretty good just the way that is, but I think that's too steep. Yeah, like if you just had this going like so, you know, and then obviously it would have an edge around, because you want the pickguard not to go exactly up to the edge. That looks a little strange. And then somewhere, you know, maybe here or something, we would have a neck pickup, and let's pretend that we need 3 pickups, you know, and then the bridge here, and the end piece for the strings right here. And then we could have maybe the output jack is on the side, and maybe we have there's the 3 pickups, so there is the volume and tone and selector switch, and obviously we would measure and make sure that they are correct. But it could also be cool to have maybe the selector switch there or something, I don't know. And we could make those maybe be like little triangles. That could be cool. You could make your own knobs and make little triangles. That's just an optional something. That could be cool, maybe. And then that would all, this would all be painted black. And that would be the pick guard. And obviously this would be the neck. And I mean, obviously this is not super, and maybe this line here, for example, let's see if I can make this go together. Maybe that could be the angle, so that this part here is an armrest and cut down, so you have a line there. Maybe you can make that line continue throughout this, because right now it looks a little wonky with that, but maybe you could have it go like down like that, so for example. And maybe if we do that, now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, I feel like, but if we did continue that line like that through the guitar, and we extended this line down, you know, and then maybe we move this down, and we continue this line, if I can do it, and maybe we would get something a little bit more interesting, who knows. I don't know. I'm just drawing, but my point is, you know, to like sort of have a. I feel like it's too elongated now, but I kind of like it. Obviously, the pickguard would have to be extended as well, because I feel like it should match up and follow along with the body. So let's add another knob as well. You know, and sort of mishmash and just go back and forth and see what sort of shapes and angles you find, and you know, and as long as you have the center line and everything, you know, sort of adds up. And yeah, you know, and it looks as long as you have the center line and all, you know, the bridge and pickups and all of that is on that line and the neck is straight on that line, the shape in itself, you know, doesn't really matter. But if you keep, you know, repeatable sizes of circles that have the same radius, and you know, not that all circles have the same radius, but that there are a repetitive nature to like create balance across the guitar, then you will find a design that looks pleasing to the eye. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I hope this helped. I hope this got you inspired into maybe drawing some guitars, coming up with some cool designs. You can steal this one if you think it looks cool, or if you just want to play around with it. And if you feel that it was cool, yeah, if you liked it, yeah. I hope this was interesting or a fun topic or something. This is what I've used to design some of my guitar bodies. I know I haven't really shown you much about my own design guitars, but maybe in the future. Yeah. Anyway, talk to me in the comments below if you want to. And if you like the video, don't forget to like the video. And if you are new here, don't forget to press the subscribe button. I appreciate it when you guys are doing that, because that's awesome. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Until next time, don't forget to stay awesome and cool, and go and build a guitar. Design a guitar and then build it. It's a lot of fun to see an idea you have in your head be transferred to paper and then transferred to wood and then come out the other end as an actual guitar. And there are kits that have like a big block blank body, so if you're not ready or you're not in the mood, whatever, to make it all from scratch, you don't have to make it all from scratch, but designing guitars is super fun, so go do that. So go and do that, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye bye.